Final Stop Brazil, Book 2, Life After Hell, Chapter 11, No Light at the End of the Tunnel. October 2006. Somehow, I did manage to answer Michael's letter in 8 pages. It was very hard for me, but instead of any allegations, my letter expressed all my love for him, and the assurance that I was behind him, believed in him, and knew that it was not him, but what they did with him or made of him. Again, I urged him to help save my stuff, but I didn't even know if he would get this letter. My new lawyer, Dr. Wesley, visited me 3 times already, and really seemed to make a difference. At his last visit, he dictated me a text in which I gave him the order to go ahead with the process. He was amazed how quick I wrote his words down on paper, asked me impressed when I learned to write fluently Portuguese. One of the rare moments that filled me with pride. But I wanted something completely different, my freedom. More and more prisoners were dismissed under a new decree law, habeas corpus, and had back their freedom after a year without a conviction, including with the help of Dr. Wesley, as I was told by Julia. I asked him to fight for it. He warned me that this was not easy, but he would do what he could. I trusted him in any case, more than this Mrs. Bischoff. Unfortunately, I fell meanwhile so deep into depression that I simply missed the right time. At the annual children's party, I kept being absent. Why should I celebrate with other people's children, while I was separated from my own child so cruelly? Most foreigners, like me, were boycotting the festival. My ad had never been placed, and I never heard anything again of the trainee from the consulate. But also I heard nothing of Mr. Sturm and Mr. Waldman for a long time. Every day I barricaded myself behind books. At work I listened to loud music for not having to endure the chatter of the others, and hardly spoke any more to anyone. I gave my name and address to 2 women so they could arrange some contact to male prisoners. It was already all the same for me. If necessary, I would marry a prison inmate to remain in Brazil. But this was not the only reason. Also, I wanted to, like the others, just receive some mail by someone, since no one else wrote to me anymore. Between Sheila and Tachi happened the first tangible marital dispute, and it crashed hugely, while I got in the crossfire trying to mediate. Accidentally, I gained a resounding slap of Tachi, which was meant to be for Sheila. Enraged, Sheila then had a go on Tachi. "You hit Pingo!" and was eventually taken out of the cell to sleep that night in another one. The next day, peace returned again between the 2. Only I was pissed off. The spring had already begun, but it was pouring down with rain and cold. For days I suffered from a severe flu. Nobody went to work because of the rain, but in our cells was no water that time, since all the pipes were dilapidated. My mood was at point zero. November 2006. Everything was unchanged, at least for Tachi and Sheila. It bothered me more and more that I could hardly watch the news or other reports that interested me, because of the stupid novellas. The 2 were hogging the TV fully for themselves. Conversations were hardly taking place. Their only concern was how they could organize the maconha, hashish, for the next day. I took the tranquilizers regularly now, plugged in my headphones, listened to music. Music was the only thing that sustained me, and fell asleep at the latest by 10 o'clock, usually sooner if I felt no desire to read, what now seemed more likely. Just as earlier in Arusha, I lived back in my daydreams of Fortaleza and Jefferson. The reality moved even further into the distance for me, the only way to survive. School didn't interest me anymore. I almost received no letters anymore, and I didn't mind anymore. I had stopped caring. When I received a letter of Michael again, it made me very sad, but I had no more tears. He wrote of the home where he was, that he didn't like it, and he had to spend his birthday at this home because his sister was having a baby. All in all, this letter expressed deepest sadness and disappointment. It wasn't my fault, but they didn't want me there in Spain anymore. This sentence shocked me the most. Michael had been lied to from the front to rear in order to lure him to Germany. Why? How often I had asked myself this question yet. As a sign of a hard-boiled and brazenest manner, I received yet another letter of Catherine, even though I begged her not to write to me any more. Apparently she knew of no bank account she had access to. Who else but her had money withdrawn of it? Many more lies and accusations. Emotionless, I flew over this letter, but when I read the email statement, which she copied into the letter text, exactly the email which I had sent to her then from Sao Paulo, in which I wrote that I had great fear for Michael, and this would have been the email that could have exonerated me, with a cynical comment of her, "If it helps you, I can pass this email to the police," escaped me an ironic laugh. Now, after almost 15 months, and just before the conclusion of the investigation, this was probably an offer that came a little too late, and no longer necessary. Without further ado, the letter landed in the trash, so I wouldn't at some point be tempted to respond. To Michael, however, I wrote another letter, in which I expressed my love for him and tried to encourage him. Since I didn't know if my letters to him were censored, I wrote him a few passages in Spanish, so that only he could read them. Like, for example, that I would like to have him here in Brazil with me, that I had friends who would take care of him, so that he could visit me every Sunday, and we both could build up a new life here after my time in prison. Should he decide to return to Spain, though, I would also do the same and return there. Told him that this was only possible with his help, in the form of an education he should get in Spain. Like before, when Michael had concrete ideas that he wanted to be a painter and decorator. So we could build a new life on this. I also wrote to his guardian, but it was not so nice. I let out all my anger, desperation, and all the feelings of contempt for this German death stallion. In my eyes, this man had failed all over. Where had been the psychological care and support Michael for sure would have needed much? After I gave these letters in the mail, I felt a little better. I came back a little more out of my snail shell. But it was Julia who really shook me awake, who liked me very much. She repeatedly told me to fight on instead of sitting around idly. Until then, I had developed in prison a feeling of security and safety. The idea of a release I feared at some point, because then this security and safety could not be found outside. I'd be all alone. Julia counteracted. Every time Dr. Wesley gained a success, she told me about it. She, too, so she told me, would soon be released by his help. Not only Julia, many others spoke to me that I should fight for my right for habeas corpus, the right for release after 1 year without trial. At some point, it finally clicked in my head, and I put my name on the waiting list for the legal advice of the prison. I did so from now on every day, without success.